What you are about to see is not an accusation. It is not a judgment. In today's video, we rank the top 12 government officials in the Philippines based solely on the amount of public funds under their discretionary influence and full control. This is not a ranking of corruption. These figures are based on official budget records and publicly available disclosures from recent national budgets. However, you are free to analyze the information we presented and draw your own conclusions. This video simply shows where the largest concentration of public money exists, because big money comes with big responsibility and big risks. Let's begin. Number 12 is Juan Edgardo Sonny Angara. On July 19, 2024, he took over as Secretary of the Department of Education after being appointed by President Bongbong Marcos, replacing Sara Duterte. In 2025, DepEd's budget rose to 793.74 billion pesos, making it one of the largest in government. He does not control this entire amount. Most of the budget is locked into teachers' salaries, classrooms, books, and essential education programs. Touching these would disrupt the education system. The real power lies in the portion of the budget that can still move. He can decide which reforms move first, which programs are pushed, and which areas receive funding now instead of later. In government, timing backed by money is power. For 2025, the discretionary and movable portion of the DepEd budget is estimated at 400 million pesos. This is the amount under his direct discretionary influence. This is the measure by which his power is judged: 400 million pesos. Whether that power was used for public interest or personal interest, only he can answer that. Issue against him. Former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo accused Angara of receiving a 12% kickback from DPWH projects when he was chair of the Senate Finance Committee. However, Bernardo could not name any amount. He presented no records, no proof of transactions, and no evidence of any turnover of funds. The only detail he cited was that the alleged payments were delivered to Trigve Olivar, not to Angara himself. Angara brushed off the allegation, calling it hearsay and irresponsible. He said no transaction, evidence, or direct link was shown connecting him to wrongdoing, and asserted that he has never been involved in corruption during his more than 2 decades in public service. Number 11 is Nancy B. Nye. Nancy is the current mayor of Makati City, a position she assumed on June 30, 2025. During the period covered by this ranking, however, she was still serving as a senator of the Philippines. In the Senate, power works quietly. Senators are given office budgets, staff support, and access to project-related allocations. More importantly, they can request funding tied to the committees they chair. Nancy served as chair of the Senate Committee on Tourism. During the 2024 budget deliberations, she requested 4.18 billion pesos for her office's 2025 operations and projects. Most of it was fixed and tied to specific programs, such as salaries and benefits of her staff, office maintenance and supplies, travel and training expenses, and projects. But a portion remained movable. This is the part she had full control over. That amount is 522.5 million Philippine pesos. That is the measure of her power in 2025. Issue against her. DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo alleged that Nancy, through her trusted staff identified as Carlene Villa, requested a 15% commitment from DPWH amounting to 37 million pesos. Bernardo claimed he personally delivered the money to her residence in Quezon City. Nancy denied the allegations. Number 10 is Michaela Swansing. Swansing is a congresswoman representing the 1st District of Nueva Ecija. During the period covered by this ranking, she served as chair of the Appropriations Committee, one of the most sensitive positions in the House of Representatives. As chair of the Appropriations Committee, she does not run a department. She does not sign checks. She does not directly spend government money. But she has control over where the money goes before it is released. That's power. In addition, her district was appropriated a budget in 2025, amounting to 1.979 billion pesos. The discretionary and movable portion of Congresswoman Michaela Swansing's budget in 2025 is estimated at 593.7 million pesos. That is the measure of her power in 2025. Issue against her. Congressman Leandro Leviste accused then-chair of the Appropriations Committee, Michaela Swansing, of offering 151 million pesos per lawmaker in allocable budget insertions just days before budget deliberations. Swansing denied the allegation and maintains that she operates in a clean, transparent, and upright manner. Just recently, the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism exposed that her district's DPWH allocation swelled from 1.6 billion pesos in the National Expenditure Program, NEP, to 3.4 billion pesos after House deliberations. A jump so large it alarmed even seasoned legislators and drew public backlash over how the system could still be exploited. Swansing brushed off the issue, saying there was nothing illegal in how the budget was handled. She asserted that the budget hearings were live-streamed and open to the public. Number 9 is Risa Hontiveros. Risa is a senator of the Philippines, known for her strong moral positions, opposition to budget insertions, and outspoken criticism of both Vice President Sara Duterte and the Marcos Jr. administration. Critics often describe her as the female counterpart of Antonio Trillanes, citing their shared views, close alignment, and confrontational style toward the government. She maintains that she operates clean and upright. Above all, she puts her money where her mouth is. In the Senate, much of her institutional power comes from chairing 2 committees, as well as from her role in legislation and budget deliberations. In 2025, the total amount of budget proposals and insertions linked to her office reached 3 billion pesos. From this, funds estimated to be under her influence, and full control amount to around 600 million pesos. That is the measure of her power in 2025. Issue against her. Records circulated online showing she had budget items of her own. Critics accused her of double standards, arguing that this contradicted her long-standing opposition to budget insertions. She rejected the term insertions, calling them amendments instead, a response critics described as hypocrisy and which sparked intense public debate. Number 8 is Raffy Tulfo. Raffy is a senator of the Philippines, widely known for his hard-hitting media persona and public shaming of alleged wrongdoers. Long before entering politics, he built a massive following by confronting officials and private citizens on air, often acting as judge, jury, and executioner in the court of public opinion. In the Senate, much of his institutional influence comes from chairing key committees, particularly the Committee on Migrant Workers and the Committee on Public Services, where he can shape hearings, legislation, and budget discussions. In 2025, the total amount involved in projects and programs linked to his proposals reached about 5.18 billion pesos. From that total, funds estimated to be under his direct discretionary influence amount to around 647.6 million pesos. That is the measure of his power in 2025. Issue against him. His power does not come from politics alone. It also comes from media. Long before entering the Senate, he built influence by exposing people on air, naming names, and applying public pressure before millions. Now, as a senator, he holds political authority on top of that media reach. Critics argue that when one person holds both, the line can blur. Exposure can happen before investigation, public judgment can come before due process, and pressure, rather than evidence, can shape outcomes. Number 7 is Manuel Bonoan. Bonoan served as secretary of the DPWH until his resignation on September 1, 2025. As DPWH secretary, he led one of the largest spending agencies in government, overseeing roads, bridges, flood control, and major infrastructure projects nationwide. He did not control the entire DPWH budget, as most funds were committed to ongoing contracts, maintenance, and long-term projects. In 2025, the DPWH budget reached roughly 900 billion pesos, making it one of the biggest in government. From this amount, a smaller portion remained flexible, covering project timing, prioritization, and implementation. Funds estimated to be under the Secretary's direct discretionary influence were around 850 million pesos. That is the measure of his power in 2025. Issue against him. Senator Ping Lacson alleged that Bonoan was part of a web of surnames he referred to as MBB, short for Maglanque Bernardo Bonoan, which he said operated construction firms with deals involving DPWH. One of these was MBB Global Properties, a company where Bonoan's daughter was listed as a corporate officer. Another was Global Crete Builders, which Lacson associated with the Maglanque family. However, the allegations focused on associations and potential conflicts of interest, not on direct evidence that Bonoan personally owned, co-owned, or financially benefited from the firms. Bonoan denied any wrongdoing and said he had no financial interest in the companies. Number 6 is Francis Chiz Escudero. Escudero served as Senate President of the Philippines until September 8, 2025, when he was replaced by Tito Soto amid shifting alliances and growing scrutiny at the height of the flood control controversy. As Senate President, Escudero did not run a department, but he controlled the flow of legislation, committee priorities, and the pace of budget deliberations, power that can quietly shape outcomes. In 2025, the total amount involved in Senate programs, committee funds, and operational budgets reached roughly 7 billion pesos. From that total, the funds estimated to be under the Senate President's direct discretionary influence amounted to around 875 million pesos. That is the measure of his power in 2025. Issue against him. During a Senate inquiry later in 2025, former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo alleged that Escudero was linked to anomalous flood control projects, claiming a 160 million peso kickback tied to DPWH contracts. Escudero flatly denied the allegation. He said no evidence was presented to support the claim, no transaction was shown, and no direct link connected him to any wrongdoing. He dismissed the accusation as baseless and politically motivated. Number 5 is Grace Poe. Grace Poe is a senator of the Philippines and one of the most recognizable figures in national politics. As the daughter of the late Fernando Poe Jr., she carries immense name recall, an asset that has long placed her at the center of major political debates. She does not run a government department, but in the Senate, power is often quieter. Poe has chaired key committees that shape legislation and spending priorities. Through committee leadership and budget negotiations, she helps decide which programs move forward, which get funding, and which stall. In 2025, the total amount involved in projects, programs, and amendments linked to her committee work and proposals reached about 11.4 billion pesos. From that total, the funds under her direct discretionary influence amounted to around 1,426,750,000 Philippine pesos. That is the measure of her power. Issue against her. Later in 2025, her name was mentioned during testimony related to alleged irregularities in public works allocations. While no specific amount was directly attributed to her, critics questioned the extent of legislative influence over infrastructure funding. Ho denied any involvement in wrongdoing and maintained that all her actions were within legal and procedural bounds. Number 4 is Joel Villanueva. Villanueva is a senator of the Philippines and a longtime lawmaker known for championing labor, employment, and social protection policies. Over the years, he has held key committee roles that strengthen his influence during budget deliberations and legislative negotiations. In 2025, the total amount involved in projects, programs, and amendments linked to his proposals reached about 12 billion pesos. From that total, the funds under his direct discretionary influence amounted to around 1.5 billion pesos. That is the measure of his power. Issue against him. During inquiries into alleged flood control anomalies, former DPWH engineer Bryce Erickson Hernandez testified that 600 million pesos worth of projects in Bulacan were linked to Senator Joel Villanueva and allegedly carried a 30% SOP or kickback. He claimed the cash was delivered through intermediaries, including a staff member reportedly connected to Villanueva, and handed over at a private residence. Villanueva denied the allegation and said he has never had flood control projects under his name or received money from public works contracts. Number 3 is Sandro Marcos. Sandro Marcos is a congressman representing Ilocos Norte and the eldest son of President Bongbong Marcos. Though relatively new in national politics, his surname alone carries weight, giving him immediate visibility and access inside Congress. He does not run a government department, but in the House, influence is often shaped by alignment, committee participation, and leverage during budget deliberations. In 2025, the total amount involved in projects and allocations linked to his district and proposals reached about 12.9 billion pesos. From that total, the funds under his direct discretionary influence amounted to around 1.61 billion pesos. That is the measure of his power. Issue against him. Former House Appropriations, Chairman Zaldi Co publicly alleged that Sandro Marcos pushed for unusually large budget insertions during bicameral negotiations, citing figures of 9.636 billion pesos in 2023, 20.174 billion pesos in 2024, and 21.127 billion pesos in 2025. Co also claimed that Marcos once pressured him over an alleged 8 billion peso insertion request, even threatening his position when it was not accommodated. Critics pointed out that the scale of funding appeared disproportionate to the pace of visible project completion in the district. Marcos denied the accusations, calling them false and politically motivated. Number 2 is Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Bongbong Marcos is the President of the Philippines. As chief executive, he sits at the very top of the government hierarchy, with authority extending across every department, agency, and major spending decision. The president does not personally manage day-to-day expenses, but He sets national priorities, approves the final national budget, appoints key officials, and holds the authority to approve, delay, or redirect significant releases of public funds. In 2025, based on executive discretion and budget authority, the funds influenced at the presidential level are estimated at approximately 25.5 billion pesos. That is the measure of his power in 2025. Issue against him. In 2025, President Marcos faced scrutiny over alleged irregularities in major infrastructure and flood control projects. Critics said that when billions of pesos are involved, responsibility ultimately rests with the president. Concerns were also raised about the growing use of allocable or project-based insertions in the national budget. Marcos denied any wrongdoing, ordered investigations, and stated that corruption in public works would not be tolerated under his administration. Number 1 is the Big Six of the 19th Congress. The Big Six refers to a group of congressmen who, according to widely circulated claims and investigative reports, were closely aligned with House leadership and wielded significant influence during the 2025 national budget process, particularly in project-based allocations under DPWH. The group includes House Speaker Martin Romualdez, Senior Deputy Speaker and Quezon 2nd District Representative David J. Suarez, former House Appropriations Committee Chairman and Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldi Co., former Senior Deputy Speaker Aurelio Dong Gonzalez Jr., former Majority Leader Manix Dalipi, and CWS Party List Representative Edwin Guardiola. To understand the figure, we begin with the 2025 DPWH project budget of approximately 900 billion pesos. Reports indicated that roughly 30% of this amount remained flexible, as many projects already had fixed allocations. That reduced the movable pool to about 270 billion pesos. The same reporting alleged that the Big Six, collectively, accounted for approximately 30% of that flexible pool, placing the estimated value of projects influenced at around 81 billion pesos. That is the measure of their power in 2025. Issue against them. During investigations into alleged public works anomalies, witnesses and former DPWH officials claimed that certain lawmakers closely aligned with House leadership operated under what was described as a standard 30% SOP, or automatic cut from project allocations. The allegations suggested that projects routed through favored districts carried predetermined percentages, raising concerns that the budget process had been structured to benefit a select group. Members of the group have denied wrongdoing, insisting that all allocations were part of the lawful budget approval process and that no illegal arrangement existed. We have shown you the numbers. We have laid out the structure of power. This is not about accusation. It is about awareness. Where public money concentrates, power follows. What that power becomes is for you to decide. Comment below.